A Kansas City Royals instant reaction following Game 2 of the American League Wild Card Series between the Royals and the Baltimore Orioles. Jeremy Guthrie told you 10 years ago you didn't listen then. Maybe you can hear it now. These O's ain't royal. Kansas City 2, Baltimore 1. It's a wrap, a two-game sweep. And the Kansas City Royals are on to the American League Division Series, where they will take on the New York Yankees beginning on Saturday at Yankee Stadium. Dan Lucero and Spencer Dupuis making some time with you this evening to celebrate a Royals victory, another one-run heart stopper. The offense has not yet made its way to October, to say the absolute least, but the bullpen, which was so outstanding through the month of September, we talked about it down the stretch, how this Royals bullpen had the best strikeout rate of any American League bullpen in the month of September, had a 1.42 earned run average as a group in the final 2 weeks of the regular season. They have continued their stellar work, with most of them pitching in the postseason for the first time in their careers. And a lot was asked of the bullpen in this game after Seth Lugo got an early hook as he struggled to finish the fifth inning. But the Royals bullpen comes through 4 2/3 scoreless in this one, allowing just one hit and one walk and striking out 6. You have to start there, Spencer. The Achilles heel of this team for the first 3.5 months is now all of a sudden one of its biggest weapons, and maybe the biggest reason that it's starting to feel like it did about 10 years ago for these Royals. This bullpen is tremendous right now.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, you have to call on your bullpen earlier than you had wanted to in this one. Seth Lugo's gone most of the year. He's gone into the 6th inning, or at least completed 5 full innings so much of the season, and it just wasn't going to work tonight because manager Contreras said, I'm going to pull the trigger right now maybe a little bit early rather than too late. We've seen him this whole season a couple of times, maybe we wanted him to pull it. Maybe we should have left him in. Well, I think he did it at the perfect time today. 4 1/3 innings. He had given up 5 hits. He had given up that homer, given up a walk. Anel Zerpa came in and completed the 5th and went into the 6th and was just completely dominant, striking out 2. And then you got John Schreiber coming in. He struck out 2. Sam Long struck out a batter. Bubic kind of said, haha, look what I did last night. I can be better tonight, and went a full inning. And then Lucas Erceg, I think the Royals just found their closer of the future this year.
It was outstanding relief work, and it starts with Zerpa coming in about as tough a spot as you can come in. Bases loaded, 1 out, tie game. First, give Seth Lugo credit. We could be talking about Lugo being pulled 1 batter too late, but he got Anthony Santander to pop out with nobody out and the bases loaded, which meant that Matt Cottrero could wait to get to the lefty, Colton Cowser, the 4-hitter, for Zerpa to face. And all Zerpa did was strike him out in a pitch that hit Cowser in the hand. You talk about nasty, a 98-mile-an-hour sinker with that kind of run. You know you're beat when you swing at a pitch that hits you almost in the face. And that is exactly what happened. He got the strikeout. He got the final out of the inning as well. That was huge work from Angel Zerpa, a guy who started the season on this roster, was demoted to AAA not that long ago. He was struggling so badly. It was in August he got demoted down to AAA. But he has come back. He had 7 straight scoreless outings to wrap up his regular season and puts together the biggest scoreless inning of his life here in Game 2 of this division series. John Schreiber following behind. And it's a little poetic in a way that it was Zerpa and Schreiber who started this, because those are the 2 guys who are left from the opening day bullpen who are still a part of this bullpen. Sam Long was in the organization, but not on the big league roster. Same goes for Chris Bubic, who was still rehabbing from Tommy John surgery. We all know Lucas Erceg, who was acquired from the A's at the trade deadline. This bullpen not only remade on the fly, but these guys have all hit a different level here down the stretch. And look, it's great to pitch well in September in the crucible of important pennant race games, But October is not September. October is a completely different animal. So for this bullpen to have passed this test, Spencer, and done it with flying colors in this series, not allowing a run over 2 games to one of the most powerful and potent lineups in the American League, that's big time stuff. And that's a group that deserves a ton of credit.
Yeah, they really do. And, I think you look at a team like kind of off of what you said here, but you look at a team like the Orioles who rebuilt it through the draft. They rebuilt it with young prospects, hitting prospects. It didn't seem like they got the bullpen help they needed at all this year. And it didn't seem like they went out of the deadline and did so to really retool their bullpen. And the Royals, who were not expected to even sniff the playoffs this year, maybe, get to 75 wins on the year, right? I think that was about their number at Vegas in March. And you look at them, they retool their bullpen on the fly because they realized that was one of the worst parts of their team. And it gets them a wild card series win, a wild card series sweep a year probably earlier than they thought they'd make the playoffs.
Yeah, it does. It does show a contrast. I think you make a great point there, Spencer. What the Royals did, the urgency with which they acted at the trade deadline, compared to the Orioles, who really didn't do a whole lot at the trade deadline. And outside of acquiring Corbin Burns, who was a great get for them, they really didn't do much to improve their major league roster either. They had a bunch of young guys who were really exciting young players, but they could have done a lot more to try and improve a 101 win team from last year, and they didn't do it. And they get swept out of the playoffs at home for a second consecutive year. That is now 10 straight playoff losses for the Orioles, a streak that dates back, of course, all the way back to that 2014 American League Championship Series.
I know it's a middle week, but you would have thought that the Orioles hosting a wild card series, their fans would show up, but it didn't appear like their fans showed up over the last 2 days. I think there was more fans yesterday than there was today.
And you could tell in the final 3 innings of the game, too, Spencer, there was no life in that ballpark. I think when the Orioles did not take the lead in the 5th, it sapped a lot of the joy out of that stadium. And I talked about it. We talked about this on Monday's edition of 580 Sports Talk, where I said, look, you put pressure on Baltimore with what they went through last year, getting swept in the division series by Texas. They're going to have some deja vu, not just in that dugout, but in that stadium. And that is exactly what happened. You could feel the energy in that stadium go completely south. And I think that contributed to the Royals being able to find a way to get the win. Let's talk offense for a little bit. Royals didn't get much of it again, but just enough. RBI single Vinnie Pasquantino in the 1st inning. RBI single Bobby Witt Jr. in the 6th to give the Royals the lead back after the Orioles had tied it on Cedric Mullins' solo home run to lead off the 5th off of Seth Lugo. I want to talk about Vinnie because the impact that he has on the Royals lineup can be seen by the fact that Bobby Witt Jr. saw anything to hit with 2 outs and a runner in scoring position in this series. If you're a little worried that the guy behind him can do some damage, you got to pitch to him. You got to try to get Bobby Witt Jr. out. If you're not, if that's Michael Massey batting 3rd, or if that's a slumping Salvador Perez batting 3rd, or if that's Paul DeYoung or Tommy Hunter Renfroe, MJ Melendez, whoever batting 3rd, it's not the same. Teams would have been more willing. Baltimore would have been more willing in this series to pitch around Bobby Witt Jr. But because Vinny's behind him and because Vinny came through in that 1st inning with that RBI single, they had to pitch to Bobby Witt with 2 outs and runners in scoring position, even with an open base in this series. I shouldn't say they had to. They probably could have free passed him, but the reason they didn't is because they respected the 3-hole hitter in a way that nobody had to do against the Royals really in the last month of the regular season with Pasquantino out. So his presence, I would argue, contributed to all 3 runs in this series. He drove in the run in the 1st inning, and he was the reason Bobby Witt Jr. saw anything to hit when he drove in the game's lone run yesterday, and he drove in the go-ahead run tonight. That's what Vinnie Pasquantino does. Just having that guy back in the lineup makes Bobby Witt Jr. that much better. It's funny how that works.
Yeah, it really is funny how that works. And it's just kind of crazy. Vinny, who should still be rehabbing right now, right?
Right. We said 6 to 8 weeks. It's not. It was barely 5. It's a medical miracle, like legitimately.
For him to come out and have any impact. I mean, yesterday I pointed it out here in the post game reaction from yesterday. Just him getting on base was huge. Well, tonight, guess what? He had 2 hits, an RBI double or an RBI single, and then he had a walk on top of that. He reached base 3 times today.
Yeah.
For a guy that's supposed to be rehabbing a broken thumb, he's got plates in his thumb, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff. You could see the picture of his surgery scar. It is in no way fully healed, but he's comfortable enough to be a presence. He's been hitting the ball hard. I think he's seeing it well. He had good at bats. Obviously drove in that run in the first inning. Just changes the dynamic of this Royals offense so much.
I think too it goes back to what he said yesterday, but what he said when they had the press conference. When they got home, they got back to the K, and or what was it, the 1st of September or something like that. When they came back, he had a press conference to say that he was getting surgery, and he said, "My season's not over," and he kept trying to swing the bat. He said this yesterday in his media availability that he was one-handed swinging the bat, just trying to keep in motion because he knew his season was going to be over one way or another.
Yeah, a remarkable comeback and so important for this Royals lineup. The runners in scoring position struggles continued for the rest of the lineup. Unfortunately, that has been an ongoing theme over the past month and change, and that has to correct itself against the more potent opposition you could expect to face as we go on in the playoffs. But as long as Bobby Witt Jr. is seeing pitches to hit with runners in scoring position, you feel good about him coming through. How about this stat from the MLB Network? Bobby Witt Jr. is the second player in the history of Major League Baseball to drive in the game-winning run in each of his first 2 career postseason games. The other, you got to go way back for this one, Hall of Famer Jimmy Fox. So pretty good company to be keeping for Bobby Witt Jr. Let's make one more point about this game that I think is crucial. The defense. 2 monster defensive plays in this game that I think were really influential in the Royals taking care of business. We'll start with the one that we wouldn't have expected. The catch made by MJ Melendez on the deep fly ball Ramon Urias to lead off the 3rd inning. That could have been a double, maybe a triple, but MJ, who of course had the terrible misplay in left field in game 1, was able to run that ball down. That was big to keep the leadoff hitter from reaching scoring position in that 3rd inning. And then the play in the 4th inning that Michael Massey made up the middle. We maybe forgotten about this or glided past it a little bit throughout the season because he's been hurt and he hasn't been as reliably in the lineup or on the field. But Michael Massey's damn good with the glove. And he saved a run in a big inning right there, preserved the Royals' lead at the time. Pitching, defense, scratching and clawing out runs where you can. Again,
that's October baseball.
There's a reason this feels familiar to Royals fans everywhere. And speaking of feeling familiar to a certain subset and generation ahead of us or behind us, however you want to phrase it, the older than us, let's go with that. The generation or 2 older than us who are Kansas City Royals fans are going to take this next series extra personally because for the first time since it was 3 consecutive years in the American League Championship Series, it's the Royals and the Yankees in a best of 5 in the American League playoffs. How'd all those go, Dan? You might ask if you weren't alive for the late 70s. I wasn't either. I'm just looking at Baseball Reference. Yankees in 76 in 5 games. Yankees in 77 in 5 games. Yankees in 78 in 4 games. The name Chris Chambliss is a curse word. It's a whole thing, Spencer. You'll have to take my word for it. But Royals Yankees means something to the generations ahead of us who are Royals fans. So it's even more exciting, I think, for those folks that the Royals get a chance to play the Bronx Bombers and maybe exercise some past demons from the late 70s coming up. Game 1 is Saturday night, 5:38 Central Time, first pitch. Game 2 is Monday night. So, folks, I hope you got 2 televisions because on Monday night, Royals-Yankees Game 2, Chiefs-Saints, Monday Night Football. What a night that is going to be for Kansas City sports fans everywhere. The Royals are on to the second round, the division series. There's no ball game tomorrow, which means there is 580 Sports Talk tomorrow. So join the three of us, myself, Spencer Dupuis, and of course, Brendan Dworzinski. We'll be on from 3 to 6. We'll be celebrating this accomplishment for the Kansas City Royals and looking ahead to their series against the Yankees. We'll also have our full component of Thursday guests on the show. Again, we'll have a good time tomorrow. We hope you'll join us on these same video channels and, of course, on the radio, 580 WIBW and FM News 104.9. For Spencer Dupuis, I'm Dan Lucero saying good night. The Kansas City Royals are moving on to the American League Division Series.